There's a recurring moment in the life of every gardener, homesteader or soil tinkerer when the cost of fertilizers becomes impossible to ignore. Maybe it's when you're hauling another heavy bag of synthetic pellets into the garden. Or maybe it's that moment you realize your crops are becoming dependent on store-bought nutrients, the same way modern agriculture became dependent on industrial inputs after World War II. And if you're like the old-school experimenters and history buffs who watch this channel, you eventually ask the question farmers have asked for centuries. What did people do before fertilizer companies existed? How did entire civilizations maintain soil fertility long before factories, supply chains, or big agriculture? The answer is simple, but its power is immense. They let worms do the work. Today's guide dives straight into a method that produces unlimited worm castings without the smell, without the flies, and without the maintenance nightmares that make most people quit vermicomposting. This isn't another bin-in-the-basement setup or a complicated tower of trays. This is the streamlined, survival-tested system that historically literate growers used long before marketing turned compost into a product. It's the method that creates a clean, continuous, odour-free supply of black gold. Worm castings that regenerate soil automatically. The key principle begins with controlling the environment, not the worms. Most worm systems fail because people focus on the worms instead of the conditions that drive them. When historical farmers created worm-rich soils, Roman pit gardens, Japanese leaf mould beds, early American midden trenches, they didn't hover over the creatures. They built environments that stayed stable, cool, and layered. Worms are natural decomposers, but they only thrive when air, moisture and carbon are balanced. Too many kitchen scraps? You get smells. Too much moisture? You get flies. Too much nitrogen? The worms flee. The method here uses one simple trick: carbon buffering. Instead of adding food scraps directly into a bin where fruit flies can access them, or where gases build up, you pre-layer everything with shredded paper, cardboard, dry leaves, or old straw. This carbon acts like a vault, sealing in odours, absorbing excess liquids and providing the structure worms prefer. Historically, this same principle is why barn floors filled with straw never smelled of rot until disturbed. The carbon locked everything in and let microbes work slowly, cleanly. The moment you build carbon buffering into your worm operation, the system becomes silent and smell-free. The real hack here is transforming a single container into a self-regulating micro-ecosystem. Instead of relying on trays or those complicated multi-level systems, one sturdy container with a breathable lid does the trick. The key, really, is creating depth without compression. You begin with a thick bedding layer of shredded paper or cardboard. Now wet it just enough so it holds moisture when squeezed but doesn't drip. This, you see, replicates the soft, damp leaf litter worms naturally inhabit. On top of this, bury small quantities of chopped kitchen scraps deep within the carbon layer so they are never exposed to surface air. Once you set up this environment, it becomes a micro-ecosystem. Microbes colonize the bedding, scraps soften, and worms begin to process material at a steady pace. If you keep adding carbon at the same rate as food scraps, the container will never smell, never liquefy, and never form anaerobic pockets. You end up with a system that runs continuously instead of cycling through messy decomposition phases. This is why, some traditional societies placed food waste beneath layers of grass or straw, because carbon regulates everything. The way to get unlimited castings is to harvest horizontally, not vertically. Here's where, honestly, the system becomes practical for long-term use. Most people struggle because they try to harvest castings by dumping out the bin or sorting worms manually. That's tedious, and historically growers avoided processes that wasted time. Instead, they used directional feeding. To apply that principle today, just push all the material in your bin to one side. On the opposite side, build a fresh bedding zone of moist cardboard and a small amount of buried food scraps. Worms naturally migrate toward the fresh food source, leaving behind castings in the original section. Within 1 to 2 weeks, the old section becomes mostly worm-free. You can, remove the finished castings without sifting through a wriggling mass of worms. Over time, you repeat this side-to-side migration. It becomes, like a worm-pulled conveyor belt, where the worms follow the food and leave behind castings that are clean, rich, and ready to use. This method mirrors the way worms move through soil layers in forest floors, always chasing fresh organic matter and leaving fertility in their wake. The biggest advantage is that these castings outperform traditional fertilizers in every category. Worm castings aren't just nutrient-rich. They are packed with beneficial microbes, natural plant growth regulators, trace minerals, and humic substances that stimulate root development. They hold water like a sponge, yet drain freely. They buffer soil pH naturally. They stabilize soil structure. And because they release nutrients slowly, they never burn plants, even in high concentrations. For practical use, you can top-dress beds, mix castings into seed-starting soil brew casting tea for foliar feeding, or use small amounts directly around fruit trees and shrubs. The effects compound season after season. This is why worm-rich soils historically produced reliable yields, even under stress. Because castings enhance resilience, not just fertility. Your system becomes a self-renewing factory the moment you maintain balance. All you need to do is feed small amounts regularly. Never overwhelm the bin. Always add carbon with every feeding. Keep moisture consistent, and allow worms to migrate instead of forcing them into chaos. With this setup, a single container can produce continuous castings for years without ever needing to be reset. If this guide helped you break free from expensive fertilizers and tap into an older, more reliable method of building soil, subscribe to Botanical Bliss and share this video with someone who wants to turn kitchen waste into true black gold. Your support keeps these deep, historically grounded methods alive for the next generation of growers.